Hi class, so I'm glad you're watching this. This means you're digging deeper. This is the lecture on critical reading and why is it important? Why is it important that we read critically? You're going to have an assignment this week where you have to go in an opposing viewpoints research center, find two opposing arguments, and judge which one of those arguments is the winner, right? The truth. So critical reading goes beyond just entertainment, absorbing information. It's about analyzing, evaluating, interpreting all of these texts. That's what we want to do. In college, we want to study the text. So here's some differences between high school and college reading. You may be comfortable with the way things were done in high school. That's not necessarily how college rolls, right? So high school, we have teacher-guided text exploration. In college, you're oftentimes independently reading the text. It's put on you. In high school, we got brief assignments, class discussions. In college, we have extensive pre-class reading. I remember when I was in graduate school, I had to read like a book a day for this European literature class. It was crazy. I was literally reading all day. It was on me, and I enjoyed it. In high school, we focus on basic comprehension. Do we understand what we read? But in college, and particularly this week, we're analyzing. We're critically evaluating what we're reading. We're breaking it apart. Is this true? Is this a fallacy? Is this ethos, pathos, logos? What are they using here? How are they connecting with the reader? What tools? And in class, reading time in high school changes to reading outside of the class in college. Regular comprehension texts in high school turn into the teacher assumes that you have read the material, right? Big differences. So let's look at the process. Before we even read anything, we can preview it. We can look at the title. You know, as I tell you with writing in my classes anyway, here's my essay. It's entitled Essay 1. Would you like to read that? Most of the time students are like, I'm like, yeah, me either. I don't want to read Essay 1. Come up with the title. You know, is Google making us stupid? Something. Obviously, these authors title their articles in order to capture the reader's attention. Headings, visuals, look over all those. That's going to give you a clue about concerning what the article's about. And then who's the author? Who do they work for? Are they a professor from a university, credible? Are they a right or a left-wing supporter that just writes biasly, supporting their political stance? Who's the author? What's their perspective? You know, and then we can skim the reading, right? How's it structured? How do they lay this out? What's the purpose of structuring it like that? And then activating your knowledge. Ask yourself what you already know about the topic. You know, if you're reading a journal article and it's on school dress codes, say we have opposite viewpoints on that. What do you already know about school dress codes that you can bring to the table? So the first weeks we annotated. We broke the growth mindset article down. We had highlighters, we had pens. Y'all did a great job on that. But that's marking your key ideas, the questions. What? Star, this guy's crazy. I don't understand this. What a great concept. It really makes sense, right? Just writing it in the margins will give you a firmer understanding. I'll show you at the end of this presentation how much more you will remember by annotating. And then asking questions. Examine the purpose. Who's the audience? Who are they writing for? Making assumptions. What's their tone? What's their tone? Are they angry? Are they laid back? Are they trying to convince you of something? And then finding the thesis. What's their main point? You know, generally in our essays, 99% of the time, our thesis is the last sentence of the first paragraph. And what's the support of those arguments? Where's their evidence, right? And then spotting rhetorical appeals, which was in my last video of ethos, pathos, and logos. Very important. So when we annotate, we mark key elements. We identify the thesis, main points. We ask questions. We write questions and comments in the margins. Note personal experiences related to the text. That'll help you remember it. Evaluate the sources. Underline the sources for relevance, credibility, and currency. That's going to become really important in this coming assignment. When you go into the Opposing Research Center, you want to see what their sources are, and if those sources are biased, or if they are current, right? Really important. Here's an example of what we did. It's the annotated essay. So do this. Print the paper out. I like writing on paper. I don't like annotating on a computer screen. But if you do, that's fine. But I like writing it, because actively writing your ideas on a piece of paper will help you remember it. And I'll show you how much more at the end of this presentation. So we're going to evaluate these texts we're exploring in the Opposing Research Center. We're going to look for bias, first of all. Is it a balanced view, or does it favor one perspective? Look for loaded language, those fallacies that were in another video this week. Evidence quality. Assess whether claims are supported by credible, relevant sources. If they're not, then the article itself is probably not quality arguments, right? And then we're going to look for those fallacies. In the other video, I went over all those fallacies. We see them on the news every day. We see them on Facebook every day. We see people using those fallacies every day. Knowing those fallacies will help us be better writers and readers. Alternative viewpoints. Education is about looking at the alternate viewpoint. Notice if the author acknowledges counter-arguments or presents multiple perspectives of an issue. If they do, that's much more credible than just presenting one side, right? So look for those things. Here's the really important one. Along with this political discussion, you have to select the president's inauguration speech, and you have to outline if they use ethos, pathos, and logos, or if they didn't use one, or if they just used pathos and emotion, and that was it, then they didn't use the other two. And are their speeches effective? Here's where you're going to be stuck a little bit, because when we do a rhetorical analysis, or we walk up and examine a presidential inaugural address, we've got to remove our bias. We can't walk in with like, I'm a Democrat, I'm going to just tear Ronald Reagan up, or I'm a Republican, I'm just going to tear Barack Obama up. We have to look at their argument. Do they present their points? Do they use ethos, pathos, logos? Are there any fallacies in there at all? And then decide if it's effective. Is it effective? We have to recognize, first of all, our personal bias, because those biases are ingrained in all of us. What are your existing beliefs and your opinions that might influence how you interpret information? That's hard to do, right? Check your assumptions. Question the assumptions you bring to the text based on your background and your experience. Check number 2. That's hard to do, right? And then seek cognitive balance. That's the purpose of this. Actively look for perspectives that challenge your existing viewpoint to ensure a more balanced understanding. So if I believe one thing, I'm going to look for viewpoints that challenge that. I'm going to try to argue with myself. Remain balanced. So engaging with the text, we summarize, we make connections, and then we reflect on the text, writing a response, right? So after we read, we revisit these key questions that we annotated, wrote within the text. Was the author's point clear? Were they convincing? Then we review our notes. Look over your annotations for patterns, insights. Were there similar things in the first paragraph that happened in latter paragraphs? Those would connect, right? And then you synthesize the information. Form your own conclusions based on critical analysis. And then we can discuss those things as we do in our show and tell discussions and during class. Share interpretations with your peers because they're going to have different viewpoints. And that's the next learning level. Here's some tools that will help you with critical reading. I've just written these out. So one's called Soapstone. So what's the subject of the essay? What's the occasion? What time period is it? Is it the 1960s, Civil Rights Movement? Is it today? What's going on? Who's the intended audience? Everyone writes something for an intended audience. Know who your audience is. They do. What's the purpose? Are they trying to sway you to one side? Are they trying to convince you? Who's the speaker? Who is that person? And what's their tone? Because tone, well, for example, with presidents, tone dramatically shifted from 1980 to the present day. Look at the tone. Then we have the square method. So that's survey, just briefly skim it over. Question, what do I feel like I'm about to gain from this or understand? Read, recite. If you can recite it, then you obviously understand the content of what you read. And then review. Review what you gain. And then we have the other video that I posted for you on the rhetorical triangle from Aristotle. That's ethos, credibility, pathos, emotion, #1 seller, and logic, which is logos, right? So there's a parallel meaning here that I want to cover at the end of this video. Both reading and writing involve similar ways of constructing and interpreting meaning. I'll just say that I didn't know all of the rhetorical terms. I'll roll the R on that because it sounds scary. That just means putting words together so they convey an idea. That's not scary, right? I did not know all the rhetorical terms of grammar when I was first year college. I learned grammar basically from reading. I saw where the commas went. I saw where the pauses were. I saw where the periods were, exclamation marks, quotations, who's talking to who. I just learned grammar that way by seeing it, and that was from reading. So therefore I learned how to write. You know, so here's the connection. Reading, you decode text to build understanding. Writing, you encode meaning into text. What's your purpose? What's your meaning? Here you're decoding it. Here you're encoding it, right? In reading, you use prior knowledge to interpret what you're taking in. In writing, you use knowledge to develop the content. You're pushing your own knowledge out there. In reading, you're pulling it in, right? In reading, you connect ideas across the text. Join them together like a dots, right? In writing, you create connections between ideas. In reading, you update understanding with new information, something you've never heard before. Something, and that's exciting for me. That's why I love research. Something, a lifelong learner. I just want to go down the rabbit hole. I just want to investigate and learn more about this, right? And in writing, you revise to improve clarity. In reading, you evaluate the author's message. What is their intent? What's their thesis? What's their main point? What's their argument? And in writing, you consider the audience who you're writing for and how you're going to communicate to them, right? Both of these processes require critical thinking and active engagement to effectively create meaning, right? So here's a wrap up. Why does this matter? First of all, reading and examining the way authors put together information will make you a better writer. Bottom line. Because you can learn those techniques from effective authors, right? You become literate in media. You can identify biases almost right off the bat in the news, in advertisements, in social media. After this week, you shouldn't watch a commercial the same way. You make better decisions. You're more informed. Sharpens you. Reasoning, argumentation for all life situations. You know how to adapt. You know how to, like Bruce Lee says, be water, my friend. Adapt, flow with it, overcome, because you make better decisions. You're more informed. And finally, academic preparation. This is essential for college success. This isn't just English. It will apply to all of your courses. It will apply to psychology, sociology, nursing, math, history, engineering, anything you go into. You need to have this process in hand. It will dramatically change your life and the way you perceive the world. Here's the benefits. I told you it was coming. 100% comprehension. We're going to have a deeper understanding of these texts because we're going to pick them apart. We're going to look at these methodologies of ethos, pathos, logos. Are they using fallacies? They're throwing us off, right? 2 times the retention rate. You're going to have a better memory of what you read by practicing these exercises. 3 times the perspective. You'll have multiple viewpoints. You'll no longer view things only one way. You'll look at it from all sides. And hence, why you make better choices in life. And then applications. That's it. What I just said. Lifelong skills for all contexts. So this is a gift. It is a gift. And I hope you enjoyed this and understand the importance of it. So everyone have a great day. Look forward to your work.